Thank you. So what I was getting to before, so everything perfectly lined up for me. It all worked out, and the grids lined up. It was all perfect. But then I had this one area of my life. So as I started listening to your tapes, was quitting my job, I found myself becoming asexual. So going from promiscuous to completely asexual. It wasn't like a rule I set for myself. It just happened. And I had about 2 years of celibacy. So I couldn't figure out why, and I'd come to accept that like being asexual was how I was going to be the rest of my life. So a few months ago, I meet someone, finally, and it comes back for me. So I meet this person, I fall really, really hard for this person, and it's complicated because they ended up being in a relationship with someone else. So I've fallen in love with this person who is now also seeing someone else. It just made it very complicated, and it didn't make sense to me because I had everything else in my life lined up perfectly. That came into my life, and it was complicated, and I didn't understand why it was so complicated, and where during that 2 years where I was celibate, why that was, and where that went, and how I got it back.
Well, one of the primary reasons that we've been so delighted with analogies that we offer, like the vortex, and now like the grid, is because it helps you to understand the law basis behind everything that you're experiencing in a way that can begin to help it make more sense for you. So a lot of people, rather than trying to figure out the vibrational basis of things, are more aware of what they are offering in terms of action or behavior. And that's what you're doing here. In other words, you're describing it rather than so much in terms of the way you feel, and we'll guide you a little bit in that here in a minute. You're talking about, I did this, and then 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 I did this, and once I did this, then this happened, and once I did this, then this happened. And what we want you to start thinking about a little bit more, we've been saying to a lot of people on a lot of topics, is don't try to fill your grid in. Don't stand in the absence of something that you want. You're trying to figure out, well, I should be doing this. I shouldn't be disinterested in sex. That's not normal for a sexual being like myself, and for someone who has had such pleasure from it. That's not normal for me. And yet I'm not called to it. I'm not feeling, because that's the best thing about a discussion about sexuality. Napoleon Hill wrote a chapter in a book years ago called Sexual Transmutation in his Think and Grow Rich book. And the reason that he took the subject of sexuality as such a key piece in his book is because that was a subject that he knew that most people understood what that sexual calling is. In other words, it's something that when it calls, all logic goes out the window, nothing else makes any difference. Mm-hmm. In other words, you can legislate it, you can chop people's heads off for it. Teenagers are still going to be back in their cars having sex, and the reason is because the calling is a very, very strong calling. And we want to put into the context of it's the grid filling in. In other words, lots that you put into your vortex when you get up to speed with it. And we're not saying that every sexual experience is the grid filling in, but when it's really good sex, it is the grid filling in. When it's something that when you're really feeling strong about it, and so. Really, what this conversation is more about is that you had other things that were more active in your vibration that the grid was filling in about. And so there isn't anything out of alignment in the fact that your grid is filling in one area of your life and maybe not in another. You see what we're getting at? So then you go along and you get other things. You were consumed by your discomfort while you were working there in Wall Street. And then you felt the calling to do something else. You really didn't even know what you were going to do. You just knew it wasn't going to be that. Mm-hmm. And then the ideas kept coming as you came more into alignment with who you are. The ideas kept coming. And as you get more in alignment with who you are, the sexual calling always comes stronger when you're more in alignment with who you are. Just don't be so ready to fill the grid in. Let the grid fill in. In other words, stay focused upon the things that are exciting you, and know that you've put enough in your grid to keep yourself relative to sexuality, to keep yourself busy for 20 or 30 lifetimes. You don't need to worry about having to keep that actively alive. It's in your vortex. And when the timing is right, you see, this is the thing that's most significant. You've put all kinds of things, as you've had interaction with different people, conversations, even things that don't have anything to do with sexual interaction. You are defining who you are and who you like to be with and how you like it to feel. A sexual relationship is much more than the physical intertwining. It's about the intellect of the person. It's about the vibration of the person. It's about how this person is in relationship with their inner being. It is so much more complicated than just, I see you and you're the one that I'm choosing, and now I'm going to find a way to have this experience with you. It's way more complicated than that. So we've been saying a lot recently that when you really hear us, and you have been, and you really get that your work is about the preparation of your grid, period, which means not pinpoint the specifics of the subjects that you want to live in specific detail, but find as much fun as you can find, and as much love as you can find, as much appreciation as you can find, and as much satisfaction as you can find, and as much comfort as you can find, and as much well-being as you can find. Reach for thoughts and behaviors that feel good to you. And as you come into more and more consistent alignment, it is our promise to you that everything that you've been putting into your vortex will congeal in the most precise way and deliver itself to you in a way that you can't miss it, just like what you've just experienced relative to your work. It's just like that. We've been saying to people for a long time, don't work so hard to try to make things happen. We've been saying things like, chill out and be easy about it. And then we began saying things like, just get into the vortex, and then get into the vortex, and then take the action. And we still are saying all of those things, but we're saying it in an even more specific way these days, as we say, work on your grid. Care about your point of attraction, which means care about how you feel, and then watch what happens, and take it as it comes. You see, there's not anything missing. There's not anything out of alignment. In some ways, the analogy that we've offered recently, frequently, is if you're sitting down at a meal that is really satisfying, you're usually not lamenting the fact that you're not over there eating that instead, and over there eating that instead, and over there eating that instead. And so when your life is satisfying you, you really don't need to be lamenting the fact that it's not a sexual satisfaction, that it's an intellectual satisfaction, or that it's not a relationship satisfaction, that it's a financial satisfaction. But what difference does it make in any point in time? Allow the grid to fill in. The most active vibration within you is what will fill in. So as you're deliberately finding alignment with what you've been putting into your vortex, your all kinds of things will fill in. And of course, what people are wanting, what counselors would tell you all, is that you should be seeking more balance. You should be caring about all of these things of your life. There should be family, and there should be friends, and there should be lovers, and there should be things that stimulate you there in terms of intellect. And we say, you have put a very well-rounded you into your vortex, and you don't need to worry about getting out of balance with that well-rounded person. That well-rounded you will be inspired as you concentrate on preparing your grid. We cannot say those words often enough, and those of you who have been listening to us for a while get that, because we say these words so often. Prepare the grid. Work on your point of attraction, period. Everything else will take care of itself. And that's what we meant when we said you've put so many factors and so many requests into your vortex, you don't need to ever worry about running out of impetus of life. But it's not running out of impetus of life that's going wrong with most people. It's not preparing their grid so that what they've put there can't line up with where they are. So when the grid is trying to fill in, and it always is, because you're asking, and your frequency is here and your grid is here, then that's when it feels uncomfortable. And that's when you want to use words like greed, or words like promiscuity, or words like I'm doing something inappropriate, because it feels inappropriate to feel like that. You see, really good.
Really good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.